Ryan, would you like to tell the
Yeah.
audience at home all about the $1 million Mania at WWE Raw?
Yes, I would. So Million Dollar Mania, I believe this was around '08. Basically ratings not great for Raw, and what they decided to do was Vince McMahon himself would be giving away $1 million a week
$1
on live
million.
television. That's right. That's right. On live television, they had a glass case full of cash on the entrance stage, and he would call
Why was
one
it
lucky person.
cash? There's so many
I don't
questions
know.
already. He
I
wasn't going
know.
to
I
give it
know.
to them through the phone. I'm sorry.
Right.
Keep going.
No, absolutely. And so, yeah, he would call one lucky person and tell them that they received some money. So basically, I guess in an effort to, you would enter some kind of, I don't know if it was a website or
You
what,
would have
but
to go to the
the details
website
are fuzzy.
and enter
But
there.
yeah. And so, at literally paying people to watch Raw. Uh, is
Paying
is
people a
certainly one way
lot
to
of
go.
money.
Yes. So I, I I don't want to jump too far to the end, which is the wildest part to me. But do you have any thoughts on Million Dollar Mania in general?
Oh boy, do I have thoughts on this. So I had heard of this at least once before, but it never really sunk in what it was until I looked into it a few days ago. So you have this rating situation, which, Raw and WWE, they're always in a rating situation. But USA was pressuring Vince to do something to boost ratings, and this is what he came up with. The general idea was, at the beginning of the show, you would get a password on the show. Throughout the episode, Vince would come periodically out with a phone, make a phone call, and if you were the lucky person on the other end, if you said the password, you would get the money. So there's a lot of things wrong with this. First of all, the idea from the ground up was bad. It's either supposed to be a game show, or it's like one of those radio things where be the 10th caller in line and win a gift card or something like that. And this doesn't follow either format well and ends up missing what they're even supposed to do. Now, considering what the project ended up looking like, the radio show style giveaway I think is close to what they were going for. First and foremost, you do not have to be watching the show at the time to win. You listen for the password, and you don't have to be watching the show to get a phone call. You don't have to be doing anything to get a phone call. Just know what the password is, and just sit around your phone for 2 hours waiting for the phone call. So you're losing. There's no incentive for someone to stick around who wasn't already going to be sticking around.
Right.
And on top of that, okay, so here are things that WWE Raw has that a radio show does not. Television cameras, a live audience, an expectation to see wrestling. You have an audience of millions watching this. Next to none of them are going to be participating in this contest. And from what I could tell, it wasn't quick, as Vince just stood there with his phone, calling people. He would get answering machines, confuse people. He would get upset at his own inability to use a phone. And occasionally, someone would answer and win some money. At one point, he got someone whose voicemail was Rick Astley's Never Gonna Give You Up. Yeah, I'm sure USA's lawyers love that bit.
Oh, I'm sure, yeah.
And on a small radio show, you can get away with this kind of thing where you put something out and people who are listening will wait to get the call to call in and stuff like that. But you're not, with a show like this, you're taking time away from what's supposed to be the thing people are here for to cater to an incredibly small audience. Like, even if I think the number was 1.5 million people had registered on the website for this. Raw was already getting an average of 3 to 4 million viewers each show. So that's even a small if it was just people who watched the show already, that's only a fraction of them who had entered this contest.
Right. Yeah. This is all making sense to me. Yeah.
Right. So when you're weighing the cost of people you'll lose who don't care about the contest versus those who do care and are tuning in to see it, I don't think the math checks out, and the ratings more or less confirm this. For those watching who didn't expect to win, there's just nothing there to enjoy about it, which is what they could have learned from game shows. You don't watch a game show so that you can win. You watch it so that you can see other people win. Because it's fun. Because there's spectacle, high emotions, and a chance at even schadenfreude. You want to imagine yourself there and think of what you'd do if you were in that position. What are you even imagining when you're watching this? That you'll get a random phone call from an angry old man and then have to say a corporate catchphrase at him? He's also giving away way too much money for all of this. I looked into it. The most anyone has ever won in a single game of Jeopardy is about 77 grand. That's a show that runs a full half hour and gets darn good ratings. And even a show with higher possible prizes like Wheel of Fortune and Deal or No Deal, where they do have a chance of getting $1 million, rarely do they have to end up paying the kind of money that Vince is just throwing out there with no fanfare and zero interest from the crowd. And the thing is...
Yeah.
And,
yeah, no, keep going, please.
And on top of this, all of this, everything I've just said is if everything went swimmingly, which it did not, because there is one other aspect to this kind of audience participation that they didn't even bother with. You watch any sort of competent game show, and there's a screening process that is done well before the contestant gets on the stage. You do one of those call-in shows like Total Request Live. I don't even know if that's a thing anymore. But whenever you call into these kinds of things, you're going to talk to a producer or something first who will tell you what to do, not to swear, all that stuff. This was cold calling people live who could be doing anything at the time and could say anything on national television. Again, we mentioned the not going to give you up part. And the fact is that most of them aren't prepared, and it just didn't make for good television. Now, some of them definitely were, and you get a bit of the warm, fuzzy feeling when someone is overjoyed about getting a life-changing amount of money. And honestly, despite all the nonsense surrounding this, I can't exactly hate it because it did do some good. Much like when MoviePass crashed and burned the way that it did, it ended up being a good thing for a lot of people because they got to see a lot of movies on the cheap. And there were a lot of people who got a lot of money out of this at Vince McMahon's expense.
Oh yeah, sorry. I was enthralled. Yeah, I mean, you nailed it. It was. I think comparing it to a game show is a really interesting idea because it's just game shows usually have, not that Vince McMahon isn't charismatic, not that Vince McMahon isn't an entertaining person, but him just getting mad at people on the phone, and it's just like what's the entertaining part of it? And imagine being in the crowd for this. Like, that's what I was thinking the whole time, is like just being in the crowd for this $1 Million Mania and just I mean, I think this lasted for 3 weeks.
3 weeks.
Yeah, and just knowing that Vince is going to come out at any second and just bring the show to a grinding halt is that'd be too much for me as an audience member. But I mean, the thing that really gets me about this is, in classic WWE fashion, especially in the 2000s, they can't just end anything normally.
Nope.
They have to end it in the most ridiculous way possible and have the set, for no apparent reason, collapse on Vince McMahon and have the entire crowd wonder if this man is still alive. There's something about Vince where he loves putting himself in fake danger. I don't know why, because he blew himself up in a limo once. He's done all these sorts of things, and I don't know why, and I don't know what the point of this was besides to create buzz, right? To create publicity, because wrestling truly is, more than any other industry, any publicity is good publicity. And I think that was the point here. But it's just such, and it didn't lead to any, like, obviously we have the benefit of hindsight, but it was just the set collapsed, and then that was it. And then they kept going with the shows throughout the weeks. So it's just, I don't know. And I remember Triple H was there, and he was like trying to dig Vince out. It just, the whole thing was so ridiculous.
I can't feel my leg.
Oh yeah. Oh my goodness. Yeah. It's just truly ridiculous. And they couldn't just be like, okay, we're ending this. They had to have the literal stage collapse onto him. What'd you think about this ending to $1 Million Mania?
Now, I am actually going to defend Vince McMahon in this sense, but let's put that on hold for just a moment. Just to clarify, what we're talking about is the video where all of this we talked about so far is to build up to the video that we watched this week, which was the end of the $1 Million Mania. On the third night, Vince McMahon was doing his shtick, answering calling people, you won so much money, ha ha ha. And at some point, a lighting fixture fell from the ceiling. And Vince is like, ooh, that's not good. And then all of a sudden, there's this sign that's next to him with his face on like $1 million bill or something. And it falls over, crushing Vince, so that he gets dragged out of there on a stretcher, ending the $1 Million Mania. You can tell when WWE has no confidence or faith in something, or even they realize it's a big mistake with how they upload the video. The video that they uploaded is so edited. Like we talked about the Ricky Starks thing earlier being overly edited. This is edited to the max. I think it's like footage over all 3 days of this where he's just the best calls they could scrounge up. They got graphics, they got music, they got the good moments and all that. And then when the bad stuff starts happening, ominous music, the video washes out a bit, and they cut to so many angles because the original footage did not look as good. They even cut away when the thing fell because it wasn't crushing Vince McMahon. When you saw it originally, he was clearly not even close to that thing, but they cut it in such a way so it looked like it hit him.
Yeah.
So even they know that this was bad and was not going to work. But I will defend Vince in one sense. If you're that kind of character, I don't know if he ever really wanted to be Mr. McMahon, because from what I understand, he wanted people to understand why he did the Canadian screw job and wanted people to think Bret Hart was a bad guy, but eventually just caved in and became Mr. McMahon, which he ended up loving doing from what I understand. But if you are going to be a bad guy, you don't want to go out, like you want to have some spectacle of that. Like say, Ryan, that you were in a movie. You were in the next Mission Impossible movie. Yeah. Do you want Tom Cruise to just punch you and you fall over? Or do you want to be, like, kicked out of an airplane, exploded, and all that stuff?
Oh, for sure. The second one.
Yeah. Yes. So he has the resources and the creative drive that I can see why he would want to do, like, a fake death storyline. That's one of the few things about Vince McMahon that really does make sense to me. If you're in that position, wouldn't you want to be in an exploding car at least once? So, and on top of that, I'm sure he wanted to do it this way because it goes to the, I'm the bad guy, so I gotta go out in fashion, brother. Does he say brother? Yeah. I don't know what he said. Pal. I think he says pal. But it was also clearly a rush job to get him out of there so that he didn't have to spend any more money. Because overall, he spent about $3 million on this stunt, which was less than he spent purchasing WCW. And he probably could have hired a bunch of really talented wrestler to help the product out more than whatever the heck this was supposed to be. Still, all that said, it's an interesting chapter in wrestling history, if nothing else.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, and I distinctly, for whatever it's worth, I distinctly remember watching this when it happened. So it definitely was memorable at the very least.
Now let me ask you this. Mm-hmm. What would you do if you had to put some sort of fan interaction component, a game show of sorts, in the middle of a show like this? How would you have done a ratings boosting thing like this? What would you have done differently?
That's a good question. I mean, it makes sense to have people sign up online, right? That's the way you can kind of track who wants to be involved. But maybe involve the matches. Like maybe if Triple H versus John Cena, Group A falls under Triple H and Group B falls under John Cena. And, if you're in Group A, you're rooting for Triple H to win. It just kind of adds some kind of spice to the matches themselves and involves the matches as opposed to just watching Vince walk out and, call someone random. I mean, he could still do that if he really wanted to, but it kind of adds some spice to the matches, I would say. How about you?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely, because the $1 Million Mania has literally nothing to do with wrestling. There's no wrestling component in it. Occasionally they would drag someone out there to stand next to Vince, but it didn't have anything to do with the matches that were taking place. It had nothing to do with the show. It was completely separate from it. And I think you're on the right track there. If it was me, and, this probably isn't even a good idea, but working with what you have to, I think you would definitely have a call-in hotline. You would have people call in at the beginning of the show, screen them, obviously. That would be the main thing. Make sure you screen them first. And you put them on the air right before a match starts, to predict who will win. And, hey, if they get it right, give them a $50 gift card to the company store or something like that. Because it doesn't have to be $1 million bribes or anything like that. And you get, you can convince people to come on not so much for the money, but just for, hey, my name is blank and I'm from this, and I'll tell you what, this guy is going to kick butt and I think he's going to win. That's the kind of thing that people want in a game show, is just like, as much as winning the prizes itself, their personality, them being winners on screen. So you give that to them, at least in that small way. And of course, with wrestling, everything's scripted. I'm sure you're probably going to end up giving out more money than not. But again, that's why you keep it low to like gift cards on the website. You don't give a person $200,000 just because they answered a phone.
Exactly. It involves wrestling more than what they did. So I think that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and you know what? I can't wait to see if AEW does their own. I want to see them do the $1 Million Mania thing. That would be amazing. Sure. Cody Rhodes up there calling people. He would at least have a bit more, like, well, Vince has a certain kind of charisma, but Cody has definitely a better phone charisma, if that makes sense.
Yes,
like, he'd be a better person to have call you.
Yes.
You get a better reaction
absolutely.
Talking to him than you get better reaction out of someone talking to him than someone talking to Vince, just kind of grumpy the whole time.
I totally agree. I would feel much more comfortable talking to Cody Rhodes than Vince McMahon, for sure.